Old man Harrison was a legend in his own right. We're talking houses, cars, sprawling lands, fancy hotels, and a massive company that practically ran itself. The guy had it all. But now, age was creeping in, and his strength wasn't what it used to be. One quiet afternoon, Harrison sat in his favorite armchair, staring at a faded family photo. His eyes traced the faces of his wife and kids, and a heavy question settled in his heart. Who in this house actually loves me? Who's gonna be there when I'm too weak to stand? That's when he decided to do something bold. He called up his longtime lawyer, Mr. Carter, and his personal doctor, Dr. Ellis, and invited them to his sprawling mansion. They met in his study, surrounded by shelves of old books and the faint smell of polished wood. Harrison leaned forward, his voice low, but steady. I want to pretend I'm really sick. I need to know who in my family truly cares about me, who'll stick by me if I'm on my last legs. Mr. Carter raised an eyebrow but nodded slowly. Smart move, sir, but let's be cautious. I'll set up a separate account and transfer half your wealth there. That way, if anyone's playing games, they won't get their hands on everything. Harrison gave a small smile, appreciating the foresight. Dr. Ellis chimed in. I'll tell your family you've got cancer 6 months to live. I'll sell it like it's real. And just like that, the plan was set. The next morning, Harrison started the act. He coughed loud enough for the whole house to hear, stayed in bed, and stopped his usual walks around the garden. He barely touched his food, letting himself look frail and worn. His wife, Lillian, and their 4 kids, James, the eldest son, Nathan, the second son, Emma, the first daughter, and Sophie, the youngest, were all rattled. We need to call the doctor, Emma yelled, her voice shaking. Dr. Ellis showed up, putting on a grim face as he examined Harrison in front of the family. When he was done, he turned to them, his tone heavy. I'm so sorry. Your father has cancer. He's got maybe 6 months left. The room erupted in gasps. Sophie let out a sob. No, Dad, you can't leave us. Even James and Nathan looked stunned, their faces pale. Lillian clutched her chest and sank into a chair, her eyes wide. For the first few days, the family was all in. They brought Harrison trays of soup, checked on him constantly, and sat by his bedside, whispering kind words. It was like a family pulling together. But then, about a week later, things started to shift. Lillian stopped coming to his room, saying, "It's too hard to see him like this. It breaks me." Emma claimed she was swamped with errands and could only pop in for a minute. Nathan said he had to jet off for a work trip, and James started eyeing the company like it was already his. One afternoon, James strolled into the study with a stack of papers and a slick smile. "Dad, you should rest. Let me take over the company for a while." Harrison, lying in bed, gave a weak nod but watched his son closely. Deep down, he was taking mental notes. James didn't waste time. He stepped into the company like he owned the place, redecorated the office, threw lavish parties, and started burning through cash like it was confetti. New car, weekend, getaways, you name it. He bought it. Emma wasn't much better. She dipped into the family funds for designer bags and custom jewelry. Nathan, he got tangled up with some girl he met online, showering her with gifts and trips. Meanwhile, Harrison kept up the act, looking weaker by the day, coughing harder, barely moving from his bed. But one person never left his side. Sophie, his youngest daughter. Sophie was there every moment. She spoon-fed him soup, tidied his room, sang soft lullabies, and even slept on a mat by his bed. "Dad, I'm not going anywhere," she'd whisper, holding his hand as tears rolled down her cheeks. One night, she went to her mum, Lillian, and pleaded, "Mum, let's take Dad abroad. Maybe there's a treatment that can help." Lillian just shook her head. "No way, Sophie, it's too expensive. What if he passes there? We'd be throwing money away." Sophie's heart broke, and she spent that night crying by her father's side, wiping his forehead with a cool cloth. While all this was happening, the mansion wasn't exactly quiet. Downstairs, James was throwing another party, laughing with his buddies and boasting, "Soon, all this will be mine." He had no idea his father was still watching, still listening, still very much aware. The mornings in Harrison's mansion were eerily silent. Upstairs, the old man lay in his massive bed, his face pale, his breathing slow and ragged. His coughs echoed through the room, dry and painful, like something was crumbling inside him. "Sophie, my girl, thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Sophie sat by his side, squeezing his hand gently. "I'm right here, Dad," she said, forcing a smile as she dabbed his face with a warm towel. She fed him small bites of oatmeal, helped him sip water, and rubbed his chest when the coughing got bad. But what no one else knew was that Harrison wasn't dying. Every cough, every groan, it was all part of the act to see who cared and who was just biding their time for his fortune. One afternoon, when Sophie stepped out to wash a towel, Harrison turned to the wall and muttered to himself, "Is this what my life's come to? This family I poured everything into, they don't even check if I've eaten. Not Lillian, not my sons, not Emma. They're just waiting for me to go so they can carve up my legacy." A single tear slipped down his cheek as he let out a soft groan. What did I do wrong? Downstairs, the vibe was the total opposite. James had turned the guest lounge into his personal party pad. Music blasted, wine flowed, and he was on the phone making big promises to his friends, acting like the mansion was already his. He hadn't checked on his father in days. At the company, things were even worse. James strutted into the boardroom like a king, chest puffed out. "Morning, everyone. My father's too sick to come back, so I'm running things now," he announced. Some employees clapped hesitantly, but others shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Patel, a veteran worker who'd been with Harrison for nearly 3 decades, stood up respectfully. "Sir, with all due respect, your father's still alive. Shouldn't we wait for his guidance?" James slammed his fist on the table. "Are you questioning me in my father's company?" Another employee, Miss Clara, tried to mediate. "We just want to keep things stable. Maybe a team to support you until Mr. Harrison recovers." James's face turned red. "You're all fired," he barked, pointing at the HR manager. "Get them out of here." Security escorted Mr. Patel, Miss Clara, and a few others out. Mr. Patel shook his head as he left. "I served your father like family," he said quietly. James just yelled, "Get out." Nathan, hearing about the chaos, stormed into the office later that day. "What's wrong with you, James? Why are you acting like Dad's already gone?" James leaned back in the CEO's chair, smirking. "Wake up, Nathan. Dad's got 6 months. I'm just getting ahead." Nathan clenched his fists. "You're destroying everything he built." The argument escalated until Nathan threw a punch, and security had to pull them apart. Sophie got wind of the fight and was devastated. She called James and Nathan into the living room, tears streaming down her face. "Why are you two at each other's throats? Dad's upstairs, fighting to live, and you're bickering over his company and money. Hasn't he given us enough? A good life, a great education. Why are you betraying him now?" James looked at the floor, and Nathan stayed quiet. "If anything happens to him," Sophie said, her voice breaking, "you'll have to answer to your conscience." She walked away, wiping her eyes. That evening, as Sophie fed her father, there was a knock at the door. Mr. Carter, the lawyer, stepped in and sat down. "Your boys got into it today," he said quietly. "James fired your loyal staff, and the company's in trouble." Harrison gave a faint smile. "Let them show themselves," he whispered. "I'm still watching." Just then, loud voices echoed from downstairs. It was Lillian and Emma. "I want to sell that plot of land," Emma shouted. "Why hold on to it when Dad's about to go?" Lillian replied coldly, "Wait till he's gone, then we'll sell it." Harrison heard every word. His heart raced, not from illness but from the sting of betrayal. That night, Sophie brought him a bowl of soup. "Dad, please eat," she said softly. He looked at her, his eyes heavy with emotion. "Thank you, Sophie. You're the only one who stayed." She sat beside him, crying quietly, unaware of the storm brewing in her father's heart. Days dragged on, and Harrison kept up his act, looking weaker and sicker in his quiet bedroom. Sophie never left his side, feeding him, wiping his brow, and reading him old stories from his favorite books. But outside that room, the mansion was falling apart. One morning, Nathan sat on the balcony, fuming. He'd just come back from the company, where James was making a mess of things. "James thinks he can run everything into the ground and take over Dad's legacy," Nathan muttered to himself. "I'm not sitting back anymore." The next day, Nathan suited up and drove to one of Harrison's crown jewels, the Starlight Grand Hotel, a luxurious spot in the heart of the city. The manager, Mr. Brooks, was shocked to see him. "Good afternoon, sir," Brooks said, standing quickly. Nathan didn't waste time. "This hotel's for sale," he said bluntly. Brooks's jaw dropped. "Sir, with all respect, This is one of your father's proudest achievements. It's a landmark. Please reconsider. Nathan's eyes narrowed. Are you telling me what to do with my family's property? If you keep this up, you're out of a job. Brooks bowed his head, heartbroken. I'm sorry, sir. As soon as Nathan left, Brooks called Mr. Carter, the family lawyer. Sir, Nathan's trying to sell the Starlight Grand. It doesn't feel right. Mr. Harrison's still alive. Carter's voice was calm. Don't worry, I'll handle it. The next day, Carter sent trusted associates to pose as buyers. They purchased the hotel from Nathan, secured the documents, and handed them to Carter, who locked them in his private safe. Harrison still owned the hotel, and Nathan had no clue. But Nathan wasn't done. He also sold a massive plot of land Harrison had kept untouched for years, a place he'd dreamed of turning into a community park. Same deal. Carter's people swooped in, bought it, and stashed the papers safely. Nathan thought he'd made bank, but his father's legacy was still intact. 3 days later, Emma caught wind of Nathan's deals. She stormed into the living room, where Nathan was sprawled on the couch watching TV. Nathan, you sold Dad's hotel and the land, she screamed. Are you out of your mind? Nathan sat up, caught off guard. Don't yell at me, Emma. That land was for me to sell. Emma slapped him hard across the face. You idiot, that was supposed to be mine. Nathan slapped her back, and soon they were yanking at each other's clothes, knocking over chairs and a glass vase. A maid ran to get Sophie. Miss Sophie, come quick, they're fighting. Sophie rushed in, tears already in her eyes. What is wrong with you two? Why are you tearing each other apart over Dad's stuff when he's still breathing? Nathan shouted, breathing. He's practically a corpse up there. Sophie's voice broke. Dad worked his whole life to give us everything, and this is how you repay him. Fighting like vultures. Stop it. Emma hissed and stormed out. Nathan grabbed his jacket and left too. 2 days later, Lillian, their mother, walked into Harrison's room, her nose wrinkled. This place reeks, she snapped. It's like death in here. Why does it smell so bad? Harrison coughed softly and looked away. Lillian shook her head. You're sick, not dead. Clean yourself up and open a window. We're not all dying just because you are. She clapped her hands. Driver, security. Sophie ran in. Mom, what's happening? Lillian turned sharply. I can't stand this room anymore. Your father's moving to the guest room. Even hospitals don't smell this bad. But this is Dad's room, Sophie protested. Shut up, Lillian snapped. I'm his wife, I decide what happens. The driver and security guards hesitated, but Lillian barked. Carry him to the guest room. Now. Sophie stood in front of the bed. Don't touch him. But the guards, looking uneasy, gently lifted Harrison. His eyes were heavy with sadness, not from sickness, but from the pain of his family's betrayal. Weeks passed, and Harrison's company started crumbling under James's reckless decisions. Profits tanked, clients bailed, and bills piled up. James's luxury fashion, line complete with overpriced clothes and tacky designs, was a massive flop. The company was bleeding cash. James sat in his office, sweating. Where am I gonna get money now? If this place goes under, I'm done. Then a dark idea hit him. The Starlight Grand Hotel, he muttered. That's the ticket. That evening, James called a family meeting in the living room. Harrison lay upstairs in the guest room, coughing as usual. James stood tall, his face serious. The company's in trouble, he said. If we don't act fast, we lose everything. So, I've decided we sell the Starlight Grand Hotel and pump the money into the business. Before he could finish, Emma jumped up. What hotel? The one Nathan already sold. The room went dead silent. James spun around. What did you just say? Emma crossed her arms. Ask your brother. Nathan stood slowly, and Lillian's eyes widened. Nathan, you sold the Starlight without telling me. Nathan snapped. Don't act all innocent. Mom, did you ask James about the company money he's been blowing on parties and that garbage fashion line? James lunged at him. You thief. You sold Dad's hotel and kept the cash. Nathan shoved him back. Don't touch me. I'm not watching you ruin everything Dad built. They started throwing punches. Glasses shattered and chairs toppled. Lillian screamed and the maids fled. Sophie ran in, crying. Why is there no peace in this house? Dad's sick upstairs, and you're fighting like animals. Why are you acting like he's already gone? Has money blinded you all? The room fell quiet, but no one answered. Later that night, Mr. Carter slipped into Harrison's room while Sophie was out grabbing water. He leaned close and whispered, "Sir, Nathan sold the Starlight Grand and a plot of land. But don't worry, had my people secure the papers, everything's safe." Harrison blinked slowly, his heart heavy but grateful. "Thank you," he murmured. Carter added, "Your kids are tearing each other apart. It's getting worse, but I won't let them destroy what you built." Harrison coughed weakly, his mind racing. "Is this what I raised them for? To fight over my things while I'm still here?" James wasn't done. The next day, he cornered Nathan in the living room, grabbing his shirt. "Hand over the hotel money. Nathan, you need it for the company." Nathan yanked free. "For what? So you can blow it on another party or some girl in Paris." "Not happening." James lunged again, but Sophie stepped between them. "Stop it," she yelled. "Dad's upstairs, barely holding on, and you're fighting over cash. What's wrong with you?" Nathan shook his head and stormed out. James turned to Lillian, hands shaking. "Mom, he's holding out on us. What do we do?" Lillian waved a hand calmly. "If you won't give up the money, sell something else, like your father's white SUV." Sophie, who'd just walked in with a tray of water, froze. "Mom, you're selling Dad's favorite car while he's still alive." Lillian rolled her eyes. "We need funds to save the company, Sophie." Sophie's voice trembled. "Then tell James to bring back the workers he fired. They knew the company inside out. They could fix this." James scoffed. "Those old-timers, they were useless." Sophie shot back. "They were loyal to Dad, and if he trusted them, we should too." 2 days later, 3 cars rolled into the mansion's driveway. It was Harrison's extended family, his younger sister, 2 cousins, and a village elder. They stepped out with baskets of fruit and drinks. "We heard Harrison's not well," his sister said softly. "We came to see him." But before they could reach the door, Lillian stormed out, her scarf flapping. "What are you doing here? Who called you?" The elder stepped forward calmly. "We just want to see our brother and pray for him." Lillian clapped her hands sharply. "Pray? When he was healthy and loaded, where were you? Now he's sick. You show up like scavengers. Get out." The cousins looked down, embarrassed. "We mean no harm," one said. Lillian pointed to the gate. "Leave before I call security." A guard opened the gate, and the family quietly returned to their cars. From an upstairs window, Sophie watched, her heart breaking. She turned to her father, who lay still, a single tear rolling down his cheek. The mansion was still reeling from the chaos of Harrison's extended family being sent packing. That evening, the air was thick with tension, but things were about to get uglier. Nathan stormed into the living room, his face like thunder. "Mom," he shouted, "where's Mom?" Lillian strolled out of the kitchen, sipping orange juice, looking unbothered. "Why are you yelling, Nathan?" He pointed a finger, shaking with anger. "Why'd you let James sell Dad's house and his SUV?" Lillian rolled her eyes. "Must you shout every time you open your mouth? We need money to save the company. Or do you want us to be a laughingstock?" Nathan stepped closer, his voice rising. "Mum, the way James is running things, selling 10 houses won't save the company. It'll crash again." Lillian frowned. "Don't talk about your brother like that. Show some respect." Nathan threw his hands up. "Respect? He's not acting like a big brother. The company was fine until he fired Dad's loyal workers and replaced them with his clueless friends. He's been blowing money, acting like Dad's already gone. And now you're letting him sell Dad's favorite car and a house." Lillian snapped back. "You were supposed to bring the money from the hotel you sold, but you refused." Nathan shook his head. "If you keep letting James run wild, he'll sell everything Dad owns, and the company will still tank." There was a heavy pause. Then Nathan said, "You know what? It's time to call Mr. Carter. Let him read Dad's will. Everyone gets what's theirs, and no one touches what isn't." Lillian went quiet, then nodded slowly. "Fine, I'll call him tomorrow morning." By 10 a.m. the next day, the living room was packed. Emma sat scrolling through her phone. James lounged with a smug grin. Nathan stood with his arms crossed, and Sophie sat in a corner, looking worried. Lillian perched in the center like she was running the show. The door opened, and Mr. Carter walked in, clutching a leather folder. "Good morning," he said calmly. "I was told you want to hear Mr. Harrison's will." Nathan jumped in. "Yeah, we need to know what belongs to who before everything's gone." Mr. Carter cleared his throat and opened the folder. "Unfortunately," he said, looking around, "your father hasn't written a will yet." Emma's head snapped up. "What? Mr. Carter continued. He planned to, just before he got sick. We even had an appointment, but he became too weak to follow through. James stood, fuming. So there's no will at all? Mr. Carter raised a finger. Even if there was, it wouldn't be read while he's alive. The law's clear on that. Lillian looked confused. So what now? Mr. Carter read each of them. Now, you wait, and you take care of your father. He's still here. Stop fighting. Stop selling his things. Stop tearing this family apart. Sophie nodded, tears in her eyes, but James just hissed. Nathan rubbed his forehead, and Emma rolled her eyes. Upstairs, in the guest room, Harrison lay quietly, listening through a crack in the door Sophie always forgot to close. He heard every word. As he coughed softly, a sad smile crossed his lips. They've shown me who they are, he thought. A week later, the mansion was a powder keg. Everyone moved like ghosts, barely speaking. But Lillian had other plans. That afternoon, she slipped into her finest silk dress, gold earrings, sparkling, and drove to her friend Vanessa's mansion. Vanessa was a bold, sharp-tongued woman with a reputation for speaking her mind. They hugged like old friends. Agatha, I heard about Harrison, Vanessa said, settling into her plush living room. How's he holding up? Lillian sighed dramatically. Cancer, Vanessa. The doctor says he's got months. I'm basically a widow already. Vanessa leaned forward, eyes wide. That's heavy. How are you holding up? Lillian crossed her arms. I'm not just sad, I'm lonely. No one to talk to, no one to hold me. He just coughs all day. Vanessa smirked slyly. So, he can't take care of you anymore. Lillian lowered her voice. Exactly. I've been thinking about that. Vanessa laughed. You're still young, Lillian. You don't need to suffer. If I were you, I'd find a strong young guy to keep you company. 2 days later, Lillian met Leo, a charming gym trainer in his early 30s, at her favorite spa. They hit it off, swapping numbers and soon meeting at hotels across the city. Leo treated her like royalty, complimenting her, massaging her shoulders, whispering sweet nothings. I don't know how I survived without you, Lillian told him one night. Leo grinned. You deserve to be loved. Beautiful. They kissed, and from that day, Lillian stopped checking on Harrison entirely. She left his care to Sophie, spending her days with Leo, laughing over wine and shopping sprees. But Lillian wanted Leo closer. One morning, she shocked the family by bringing him into the mansion. They were all in the living room when she strutted in, Leo trailing behind with a small bag. Everyone, meet Leo, she said, hand on his shoulder. He's our new personal driver. Emma's head whipped around. Mom, we already have a driver. Lillian waved her off. Leo's my driver. He'll take me wherever I want, whenever I want. James eyed Leo suspiciously. Nathan muttered under his breath, more like her personal plaything. Lillian shot him a look. He starts today. Any issues? No one spoke, but the tension in the room thickened. That night, Sophie couldn't sleep. She wandered to the kitchen for a glass of water and noticed the living room lights still on. As she turned back, she heard whispers and giggles from the staff quarters out back. Curious, she crept toward the small building, barefoot, her heart pounding. The closer she got, the clearer the sounds, then a soft moan. Sophie pushed the door open and froze. There was Lillian, half-dressed, sitting on Leo's lap, giggling like a teenager. Mom, Sophie shouted, her voice trembling. Lillian jumped up, and Leo scrambled for his shirt. Sophie, Lillian started, but Sophie cut her off. What is this? This is the driver you hired. This is what you're doing while Dad's lying weak upstairs. Leo stammered. I was just. Sophie screamed. Get out. Leave this house now. Leo bolted, one shoe still in his hand. Lillian tried again. Sophie, what do you expect? I'm lonely. Your father's dying. He doesn't even speak to me. Sophie's face burned with tears. He's still alive, Mom. You abandoned him for your own fun, after everything he's given you. Lillian pointed a finger. Don't you dare tell your brothers. Sophie turned and walked away, shaking with anger and heartbreak. The next morning, Sophie sat by Harrison's bed, watching him sleep, tears streaming down her face. There's no point keeping him here, she whispered to herself. No one cares. She wiped her eyes, packed a small bag, and quietly arranged for the mansion's driver to take them to Harrison's childhood village. By evening, they were gone, headed to the place where Harrison was born. As soon as they arrived, word spread like wildfire. Mr. Harrison's sick, he's back. Villagers, uncles, cousins, and elders poured into the compound, bringing fruits, palm, wine, and herbs. He paid for my shop, one man said. He built our school, another added. They pooled money, food, and ideas. An elderly woman spoke up. There's a herbalist. His remedies are better than any hospital. We'll call him. Sophie watched, stunned. So many people loved Dad, but his own family turned their backs. The next day, the herbalist, a tall man with white chalk on his face, arrived with a bag of roots and bottles. He asked to see Harrison alone. Inside the small room, he studied the old man. Your eyes have strength, he said slowly. You're not as weak as they say. Harrison sighed. Because I'm not sick, I don't have cancer. It was a test to see who truly loves me. Only my lawyer and doctor know. The herbalist's eyes widened, then he smiled. A test. You're a wise man, Chief. You used death as a mirror to see their hearts. Harrison nodded, his voice low. And what I've seen has broken me. In the village, the herbalist sat quietly with Harrison, his eyes full of respect. Chief, he said, you're not just wealthy or wise. Most fear death, but you used it to reveal true hearts. Harrison gave a tired nod, his voice heavy. Thank you, my friend. But what I've learned has shattered me. The herbalist placed a hand on his shoulder. You're not alone. Your daughter Sophie is your light in this darkness. Hold on to her. Outside, Sophie paced the courtyard, glancing at the herbalist's bag of remedies, her heart racing. Please, let him have good news, she whispered. When the herbalist stepped out, she rushed over. Is he okay? How is he? The man smiled gently. Your father's stronger than you think. Sophie's eyes lit up. The herbs are working. Already, he chuckled and patted her shoulder. Just keep loving him. That's the medicine he needs. Sophie nodded, confused but hopeful. Back in the city, the mansion was a mess. James stormed through the halls, flipping through company documents, his face tight with stress. The company's dying, he muttered. No cash, investors bailing left and right. He barged into the living room, where Lillian and Emma were watching TV. Mum, Emma, if we don't do something, the company's done for. Lillian snapped. Do something. We're not selling anything else. Shut down that ridiculous fashion brand you started. Emma rolled her eyes. Why? Not sell your car this time, James. He glared at her. Don't be dumb. Nathan walked in, catching the tail end of the argument, and laughed bitterly. Sell nothing. Maybe James should sell his own house. James spun around. At least I'm trying to save the company, unlike you, sitting around doing nothing. Nathan pointed at him. Save it. You ruined it. From the second you took over, it's been parties, bad deals, and showing off. Keep talking, and you'll see what happens. They lunged at each other, fists flying. Emma screamed. Stop it, you idiots. You'll wreck the place. Lillian stood and walked out, done with the chaos. Meanwhile, in the village, Harrison took his first real steps in weeks. With Sophie's help, he walked out of the hut, no longer pretending. He was tired not from sickness, but from a heart weighed down by betrayal. The extended family gathered, clapping and cheering. Chief's getting better, thank God. An elder pulled Sophie aside. Your father's spirit is strong, my girl. Keep caring for him, and he'll live long. Sophie smiled, tears in her eyes. Thank you. That night, Harrison sat under the stars on a wooden chair, wrapped in a thick blanket. The smell of firewood and the hum of crickets filled the air, a peace he hadn't felt in years. He looked at Sophie, who sat nearby, and whispered, Maybe this is a new beginning. She squeezed his hand, unaware of the truth he was about to reveal. The next evening, as the village sky glowed orange, Sophie brought Harrison a bowl of yam stew. Dad, you haven't eaten all day. Please try this. He looked at her, his eyes softer now, and said, Sophie, sit. I need to tell you something. She blinked, curious. What is it, Dad? He took her hand and sighed deeply. The truth. The sickness. The doctor's report. The coughing. The weakness. It was all a test. I was never sick. I don't have cancer. Sophie gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Dad, what? Harrison nodded slowly. I pretended because I wanted to see who in our family truly loves me, who'd stay when I couldn't offer money or power, who'd wipe my tears, and who'd fight over my wealth. You, Sophie, you were the only one who stood by me. You fed me, bathed me, brought me here hoping for a cure. I wasn't sick, but I was watching, and you made me proud. Sophie sat frozen, tears welling up. All this time, she whispered. Harrison's eyes glistened. "You're my heart, Sophie. You passed the test." She covered her face, overwhelmed, as the weight of his words sank in. Later that night, Harrison called the village elders and extended family to gather under the big mango tree. He stood tall, no longer leaning on anyone, and raised his voice. "My people, I have a confession." The crowd leaned in, curious. "I was never sick. I never had cancer. It was a plan to test my family, to see who loves me and who only loves my money." Gasps rippled through the group. He continued, "I needed to know their hearts, and now I do." He turned to the villagers. "But I want to thank you. Your love, your prayers, your support when you thought I was dying. I'll never forget it. And you, Sophie," he said, looking at his daughter, "you stayed by my side when everyone else walked away." The crowd erupted in applause. An elder stood. "Chief, you've taught us a lesson. This world's full of fakes, but you saw through it. You're truly wise." A woman added, "Sophie's a blessing. May she be rewarded." Harrison smiled, his first real smile in months. The next morning, the village sun shone bright. Sophie helped Harrison pack a small bag, and he dressed in a crisp native outfit, standing strong. The villagers gathered as they loaded the car, shouting, "Safe journey, Chief, come back soon. We love you." Harrison waved, blowing kisses as the car rolled down the dusty road, back to the city. When they pulled into the mansion, the gateman's jaws dropped. "Chief," they stared as Harrison stepped out. No coughing, no limping, just strength. Sophie stood beside him, holding his bag. "Let's go in, Dad," she said softly. He nodded. "It's time." But the real shock was waiting inside. Emma was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone. When the door opened, she glanced up, then froze. "Dad," she leapt up, running to hug him. "You're walking. You're okay. No coughing." Nathan came downstairs, yanking off his headphones. "What's going on?" His eyes landed on Harrison, strong and alive. "Dad." James followed, holding a wine bottle that slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. You're fine." Lillian's voice echoed from the kitchen. "Who broke something now?" She stepped into the living room and stopped dead, her heart pounding. "Darling." She grabbed the wall, staring at Harrison. Then Sophie. "You're well. You're strong." Sophie smiled coldly. "Welcome home, Dad." Harrison nodded and walked straight to his master bedroom without a word. The house went silent, like a graveyard. Everyone swarmed Sophie. Emma grabbed her arm. "How? What happened?" Nathan added, "The doctor said it was late-stage cancer. How's he standing like nothing's wrong?" James scratched his head. "This is a miracle." Lillian whispered, "I'm dreaming." Sophie's voice was icy. "I didn't do a miracle. I just gave Dad what he needed. Love, care, and peace. Any other questions? Ask him yourselves." She turned and headed upstairs, leaving them stunned. That night, Harrison sat alone in his room. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small black device, a hidden CCTV camera. From a secret box under his bed, he retrieved 2 more. He connected them to a screen, and clear footage played. Every moment in his room while he pretended to be sick. Every word, every act recorded. He took a deep breath, picked up his phone, and dialed. "Mr. Carter, come to the house tomorrow morning. Bring all the documents I gave you. It's time." The mansion's living room was heavy with silence, like the calm before a storm. Emma sat biting her nails. James's fists were clenched. Nathan's head hung low, and Lillian stood in a corner, eyes darting nervously. Mr. Carter, the family lawyer, sat calmly with a brown folder in hand. Then Harrison walked in, strong, steady, like the titan he'd always been. He stood in the center, his presence commanding every eye in the room. "I've already told Mr. Carter everything," Harrison began, his voice clear and firm. "Now it's time I tell you the truth." The family leaned forward, breaths held. "I was never sick. I never had cancer. It was a test of love, loyalty, and your true hearts." Gasps echoed. He scanned their faces slowly. "And you showed me exactly who you are." His voice trembled slightly as he turned to Sophie. "Only one person stood by me from start to finish, caring for me like a true daughter. That person is Sophie." He faced James, Nathan, and Emma, his eyes piercing. "I gave you everything, top schools, luxury, travel, a company to carry my name. But the moment you thought I was dying, you didn't wait. You started dividing my properties like I was already buried. He stepped toward James. James. My company was thriving. What did you do? You fired loyal workers who built it with me, people who gave years of their lives. You replaced them with your friends, threw parties with company money, and ran my life's work into the ground. You sold my house and my SUV. You destroyed what took me 40 years to build. James covered his face, unable to meet his father's gaze. Harrison turned to Nathan. And you had the nerve to sell my Starlight Grand Hotel and one of my most cherished lands. You treated them like cheap toys because you didn't sweat for them. Thank God for Mr. Carter. He bought them back in secret to protect my legacy. Nathan dropped to his knees, sobbing. Dad, please forgive me. Harrison's voice grew colder. That hotel and land were your inheritance. Nathan, you sold them with your own hands. You have the money now, good. Use it. Find a job elsewhere, because you'll never step foot in my company again. He looked at James. You too, James. The money you squandered, the house and car you sold, that was your share. It's gone. You have nothing left with me. Leave my company and find your own path. He turned to Emma. You wanted to sell my land too. The only reason you didn't was because you couldn't get the papers. From today, you get nothing from me until you prove yourself with actions, not words. Only then will I consider forgiving you and giving you a piece of your inheritance. Emma collapsed to her knees, crying. Then Harrison faced Lillian, his wife. And you, Lillian. After all, I gave you comfort, love, loyalty. You brought a stranger, a boy, into my house and slept with him while I lay pretending to be sick. Lillian tried to speak. Darling, please. He cut her off. I'm not your darling. You have 24 hours to pack your things and leave. I owe you nothing anymore. Lillian fell to the floor, wailing. Please, I beg you, forgive me. Harrison raised a hand. Enough. He turned to Mr. Carter. Call security. Make sure she leaves peacefully but permanently. Then he smiled and took Sophie's hand. Mr. Carter, this is why I called you. All my remaining properties, my estates, houses, businesses, everything I have left now belongs to Sophie. The room gasped. Emma froze. James gripped the couch, and Nathan wept silently. Harrison continued. Sophie is the only one who showed me true love, who believed in me, who carried me like I was her child when I acted helpless. For that, she's the sole inheritor of my wealth. He looked at Mr. Carter. Effective immediately. Sophie is the new CEO of my company. Call all the workers, especially those loyal ones James fired. Tell them their jobs are waiting. Mr. Carter smiled. Already in progress, sir. The room was silent, the weight of Harrison's words sinking in. He turned to the CCTV footage he'd kept hidden, playing it for the family. Every moment James's parties, Nathan's deals, Emma's schemes, Lillian's betrayal was there in clear detail. No one could argue, no one could hide. 1 year later, the company was soaring under Sophie's leadership. Profits doubled, new branches opened, and awards rolled in. The old workers returned, calling her Madame Sophie with pride. Harrison sat in his office, peaceful and proud, watching his daughter lead with wisdom and grace. Nathan and James found jobs elsewhere, scraping to rebuild their lives. Emma worked to prove herself, hoping to earn her father's trust. Lillian, no one heard from her again. Sophie stood tall, respected, honored, loved. When the test came, she passed with flying colors, proving that love and loyalty outweigh greed every time.